Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:07. Thanks for tuning in here this Wednesday morning. It's a hump day like none other. And that means, you know what that means? If it's a hump day, that means Bill Clinton is in the news. You heard me right. We're going to talk about him coming up and a whole lot more. Coming up at 6:05, our friend Cully Stimson is going to join us, break down some of the legal issues going on in the world today, not least of which, specifically, the trial of Donald Trump in New York with Judge Merchan trying to delay things more. What is this all about? We'll give you the latest. Also, 6:35, Cal Thomas, and at 7:35, Representative Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, and talk about what's going on with the FEMA hearings yesterday. I don't know if you saw them, but boy, what a mess that agency is. But Elon, Vivek, could we get to it, please? Then at 7:35, Megan Flynn from the Washington Post. We're going to talk about what's going to happen with the new Redskins, Command Skins Stadium, since the bill passed yesterday to get RFK back in the hands of D.C. government to do with it what they will there for a new football stadium. Then at 8:35, Jamie Brennan will get an update on the Frederick School Board elections. That's right. The battle continues there in the Frederick School Board. That's all coming up. But Julie Gunlock's here, and that's all I need to know. That's all anybody needs to know. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
We have a lot of cabinet appointments to talk about, too. We finally have our Secretary of Education. We got to discuss that. Her history is with the World Wrestling Entertainment League there, being married to Vince McMahon. So I'm hoping that she's going to put the teachers union in a pile driver and jump off the top rope and do a body slam on. Well, no, I won't continue that imagery because Randy Weingarten would be involved, and nobody needs to see that first thing they wake up. Not with that before they have their Cheerios. I'd love to turn back to our friends over on The View. You know, what's going to happen with this show, Julie? Seriously, I mean, they can't continue in the way they are, right? With the so-called conservative voices being Anna Navarro and Alyssa Farah, the two never-Trumpers who hate Trump and basically malign and
supported
disparage.
Harris.
Right.
Actively.
And then meanwhile, Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and Sonny Hostin have been so wrong about everything that they've said. And it appears the reaction of being wrong about the election is for Whoopi Goldberg to malign and lie about a small business owner in Staten Island and suggest that she, Whoopi Goldberg, the millionaire woman on television with a EGOT, is being discriminated against. And then yesterday, Sonny Hostin, well, let's start. She's talking about Matt Gaetz, the nominee for Attorney General. And Sonny Hostin said this about the congressman.
How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her.
All right, so, you know, Julie, we are in, strangely, the same business that Sonny Hostin is in. We're broadcasters, and we have certain standards and responsibilities when we deliver news and information, even when we're doing, as Sonny Hostin does, delivering an opinion based on the facts. Yeah. But, you know, when you're talking about allegations against somebody of a criminal nature that have actually never even officially been brought, you still have to be careful with your words. Like the entire time, I don't know if anyone notices this, it might drive people crazy, but the entire time we talked about the Hunter Biden laptop story, let's say, we would refer to evidence that we saw that appeared to show Hunter Biden doing X, Y, and Z, even though it was obvious that we could all see with our own eyes that Hunter Biden was doing X, Y, and Z. But until something is actually proved in a court of law with somebody being proven, innocent until proven guilty, you have to be kind of responsible with the words you use. Here's Sonny Hostin saying of a sitting congressman and the nominee for attorney general, as if it's fact, these allegations that, by the way, yes, were investigated by the Justice Department, and even under Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray and Joe Biden, they dropped the investigation. I was about to say drop charges. They never even brought charges. They stopped the investigation because none of the witnesses who claimed those things had happened were credible in any way whatsoever. But here's Sonny Hostin on ABC News just spouting that off.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Okay, you laid it out perfectly. And that would, in a normal world, and if this were actually a news program, I don't even know, even if it was a news program. I mean, we watch the mainstream media. We watch ABC News. We watch NBC. We have to see what these people say.
Yeah.
They lie through their teeth. However,
but they lie with the weasel words that give them at least enough of a loophole.
Sure. The View just is, lies with no shame. But this is the thing. The View women are the Jerry Springer of today. They are the Maury Povich show. We don't have those shows anymore.
100%.
Okay?
Yes.
And people tune in, especially angry white women, the only over 65, the only demographic that voted for Kamala, okay? Resoundingly.
And unmarried black women, yes.
Yes, right. And they tune in to get that fix, to feel like, I'm angry, they're angry, and they're going to articulate my anger. And of course, it's filled with lies and insanity. But they really are the Jerry Springer. They're sort of that train wreck that you can't turn or the car accident you can't turn away from.
Yeah.
And they're not to be taken seriously. I will tell you this, Larry, because a part of me goes, how long can this go on? I mean,
right.
Well, of course it's going to go on. They had their post-election show was the highest rated show in the show's history.
Isn't that because you and I tuned in too? Because we wanted to see them cry? Isn't that?
Yes, but it's funny that you say that. But Barbara Walters, her farewell show was the only one that was higher.
Yeah.
And so you think people tune in either to see them cry, but what they're or to feel like, community with these women. The bottom line is, it's a train wreck. It's the Jerry Springer show. It's the Maury Povich show. They want to see a chair go across the set.
It's funny you should say this. First of all, The View, when it was first created and conceived by Barbara Walters, it was produced and presented at ABC under the auspices of daytime entertainment television, which would have been talk shows, game shows, soap operas. Only recently, in 10, 15 years ago, it became part of ABC News. So it is a news program now, but it was never conceived to be that way. Also, the great Dennis Prager, who, by the way, we mentioned it before, he's still recovering from a horrible fall, and we pray for Dennis and his family. Dennis Prager used to say, men and women are different. We're wired differently. And men obviously are visual in nature. You can tell by the, industry of pornography.
Yeah, we saw that yesterday with Miss Universe. Go on.
All right. Let's exactly. But he would liken this content. He would liken Oprah and Jerry Springer and Maury Povich and all of those. He would say, because you just said women need their fix. He would say to women, this is pornography.
Yes,
this
totally.
is pornography for women, where men are little simpler creatures with the pornography that appeals to men. Now, we're not just bashing on The View because it's important and relevant and fun. We're also bashing on The View and setting everybody up for what happened next on the program. Because, when you say, how can The View continue doing this? Well, I've got your answer. Let's remind you again what Sunny Hostin said.
How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding, further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her.
Okay, and then they continue their conversation. They all start discussing it. It goes over and over. And then as they're ending the segment, Julie, Whoopi goes back to Sunny. Listen to this.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
I wish you could see. Also, you have to understand, Sunny looks like a robot. I mean, really.
Yes. She
no
looks
emotion.
like she's, the terrorists from ISIS with their faces covered have their AK-47s
Yes.
pointed at her head as she delivers the message on the hostage tape. It's fantastic. Well, maybe things are changing a little bit. It's 5:16. Let's get straight to Jamie Whitten and the Hadid Karpik.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live.
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. All right. That said, this is get ready, because now they're going to throw all this stuff at Matt Gaetz. And let's just be clear, as Sonny Hostin just very diligently reiterated, there had been an open investigation, or there had been an investigation, excuse me, it wasn't an open investigation. There had been an FBI and DOJ investigation into Matt Gaetz over allegations made by apparently not credible witnesses that he had engaged in sexual activities with young women, and the allegation is that one of those women was not of age, and that there may have been drugs involved. I want to reiterate that the Justice Department dropped the investigation. They did not find the evidence credible enough to bring charges. That then but the investigation was leaked to the media. That brought on a House ethics investigation, which does not follow the same standard and rules of a criminal investigation. There isn't the same kind of due process in an ethics investigation. That investigation now has concluded, and there is pressure on leadership in Congress to release the contents of that investigation prior to the confirmation process for Representative Matt Gaetz. And it will come out. There will be plenty of things that are put out there about Matt Gaetz before his confirmation process. And there's been some suggestion that President Trump, I think it was in a New York Times article, Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan, take it for what it's worth, have said that Donald Trump behind the scenes has said that he thinks it's maybe a 50-50 chance Matt Gaetz gets through, which is hardly a vote of confidence right now for his cabinet pick for the Justice Department. Although when asked about that yesterday, Donald Trump gave a one-word answer. He was asked, do you have any concerns about Matt Gaetz's confirmation, or are you having second thoughts about that confirmation? Actually, more accurately was the question. And he looked and said, no. And then he watched SpaceX shoot off a rocket. So this question, there's two questions here in Washington that everyone's asking. Will he get through? Which is kind of the secondary question, I think.
Yeah.
The primary question is, how broken is this town that someone is no longer treated innocent until proven guilty, and the Justice Department can use their incredible and awesome investigative power and intimidating power to be able to conduct something like this, drop the investigation, but still have all of this so-called dirty, tawdry evidence released to the public to slime a man's name. And frankly, isn't that exactly why Matt Gaetz was nominated for Attorney General in the first place?
It's actually worse than that, Larry, as well, because when you think about it, how broken is this town that so many Republicans, I've seen a lot of these respectable, Republican legal figures out there who are saying he should have nominated someone, who, I don't know, doesn't have smears against him or doesn't have this questionable background. Did you watch the last 4 years? Did you see what the media and what the Biden administration tried to do to Trump? They made up a Russia collusion hoax. So this idea that we only nominate people who have these spotless records sort of denies what the Democrats did the last 4 years in trying to destroy Donald Trump, mainly with lies. So that's another thing that frustrates me, is this sort of cowardliness on the part of some Republicans.
From 1997 to 2017, Congress paid out upwards to $17 million of tax dollars, of our money, from the federal treasury. Congress paid out $17 million in settlements to people who worked on Capitol Hill. Now, I would love to tell you exactly what those settlements were for. The understanding is that they're for allegations of harassment, workplace harassment, sexual harassment, various levels, but it's secret. The $17 million in employment-related settlements to employees on Capitol Hill who worked for congressmen and senators is secret. We're not allowed to know about it, and they have voted to keep that secret from the American people. And these are the same people who are now casting judgment on this criminal investigation that never went anywhere with Matt Gaetz. And listen, I'm not here to testify about how great a guy Matt Gaetz is. I'm not here to testify about how great a guy or gal anybody in Congress is. I don't have much trust for any member of Congress or elected official. I think I'm more concerned about the power of anonymous FBI agents and attorneys at the Justice Department who can do this on anyone, because who among us? But please cast the first stone, boys and girls, over on Capitol Hill about their behind-the-scenes proclivities. But this is the guy that they decided to open up an investigation on and then leak it and then hand it over to the House Ethics Committee, and now they're using it. And honestly, every time I see these stories, I think, you know what, this is exactly why he'd be great as Attorney General, because just like Donald Trump, what are you going to do to him? He doesn't care. He wants to blow the whole thing up, and the more I hear this stuff, I feel like it should be blown up. But, you know, the important thing is we've already made progress, because the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Sonny Hostin, has already had to sort of correct the record for their viewers.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented.
I love a good hostage video. It's 5:24.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:36 on a insane Wednesday morning. I was talking to an old friend yesterday who works in the media saying, well, I had forgotten what it's like when Donald Trump is president. And he's not even sworn in yet. And my goodness, these days are long and full, and we love it. It's what we live for. And every morning right here for 4 hours, we're going to try to condense as much as we can of the daily events and get you prepared for the next trip down the roller coaster mountain, which we're calling Wednesday, the 20th day of November. Coming up at 6:05, Cully Stimson will join us about the Trump trials. 6:35, Cal Thomas. 7:35, Representative Scott Perry. 7:35, Megan Flynn. Talk about the vote yesterday over RFK Stadium and what might be replacing RFK Sr. And then at 8:35, Jamie Brennan will be joining us. Excuse me. Jamie Brennan, by the way, from the Frederick County School Board. Sorry. My mind blanked there for a second. Or to talk about the race in the Frederick County School Board. Julie Gunlock. Yesterday, we let everybody know that Nancy Mace had put together a bill that would make the facilities, the bathroom facilities and the locker room facilities on Capitol Hill, female only, male only. We played you some audio from her and from Marjorie Taylor Greene as they were discussing their future on Capitol Hill, facing the reality that they're now going to have a man, Sarah McBride, who now represents as a woman, as one of their colleagues. You know, Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I would suspect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Ilhan Omar would also prefer, when they go to the locker room, to not change with a fully intact naked man standing right next to them. They would like to keep their private spaces private. They would not like to be exposed to a naked man's anatomy or expose their own bodies to a man without their consent. I don't think that's a lot to ask.
No.
And yet, apparently, this thing is incredibly controversial. And it continued to become an issue yesterday as people's hair was on fire. Here's Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats, the person who replaced Nancy Pelosi, who would be Speaker of the House should Democrats gain the majority in the upcoming elections 2 years from now. Here's his take on it.
The notion that this incoming small House Republican conference majority is beginning to transition to the new Congress by bullying a member of Congress. This is what we're doing? This is the lesson that you've drawn?
There's a tell here, actually, a couple of things about how, you know, poor formerly Tim McBride, now going as Sarah McBride, is the one who's the victim of bullying. But also, there's another tell. Hakeem Jeffries here saying, oh, so this is your priority. This is what you care about, not this and this and this, and make it. It's like, okay, well, you're not then saying that there's a problem here. You're just saying that this shouldn't be the priority. Well, from Nancy Mace's perspective and her female colleagues, it is a priority. And I want to get to Mike Johnson's comments in a moment, but first, just sort of the overall fallout of this story and where Democrats clearly, Julie, are holding the line on this issue, despite their own colleagues saying, yeah, we look bad on this topic. We shouldn't be doing this, like Seth Moulton said. But now they're holding the line, and it's important for Nancy Mace, isn't it?
You know, it's important for Nancy Mace, sure. Okay, but I have no doubt that Nancy Mace could kick everybody's butt in the room, right? And I'm glad she's championing this, but Nancy Mace isn't just championing this for congresswomen on the Hill who might be uncomfortable with this. I want to remind everyone, Tiffany Polifko, who was a Loudoun County school board member, she posted this yesterday. I thought this was very powerful. She said, when I served on the Loudoun County School Board, girls who didn't want to share the bathroom with boys were told they could seek mental health help.
Yeah.
That's unacceptable. She said, when I exposed it on camera, the people who were supposed to be adults in the room put their heads in the sand. Why Nancy Mace is upset about this and why she's championing this is it's not just bathrooms on Capitol Hill. It is bathrooms all across the nation where vulnerable girls and women are being told that if a man, an intact male, and any male comes in your bathroom and you are having to change in front of them, you have the problem. You are the one who has to seek treatment. It is sickening. It is not the reverse. We don't see this happening on the reverse. And honestly, on the reverse, it wouldn't be the vulnerability issue.
Right.
If a much smaller woman who identified as a male went into a male locker room, that wouldn't be as scary. But for women like me and my friends and their children, their daughters, it's terrifying. You know, also, one thing I'll say lastly, Larry, not every trans identifying female who is a male, again, looks like Sarah McBride, the new Congressman Sarah McBride.
Yeah, let me jump in because this was an argument that was being made because people were putting up pictures. Look at this person. I think it can be said that the former Tim McBride, I've seen pictures of him, was a nerdy-looking dude in college, and now Sarah McBride is basically a nerdy-looking woman. And she, Sarah McBride has longer hair, but basically looks the same. But I think the argument is, look how harmless. It's just a nerdy, woman, using quotation marks. And the argument is, well, look, Sarah McBride looks more like a woman than most of your transgender individuals. Sarah McBride can pass. It's believable. Is that really the standard? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, and again, if you looked on Twitter yesterday, Nancy Mace actually posted a video of a transgender, trans-identifying, he's a male, he's a trans-identifying woman who he said, I want to go into a bathroom with you in it. I want to beat you and kill you. And it is, I'm cleaning that up. Okay.
Yeah.
It is a terrifying, threatening video directed at Nancy Mace from this creepy looking dude who looks a little bit more like, Silence of the Lambs, the guy in terrifying guy in Silence of the Lambs. Don't think that every trans identifying woman who again is a male, I keep saying this because it's confusing, looks like Sarah McBride. There are men in this country who have a fetish about looking like women. They also hate women. You have never seen a more anti-woman movement than the trans movement in this country. It is frightening. Women are scared. Girls are scared, and we are vulnerable. And every male in this country needs to take this seriously.
That's right. This is not about Sarah McBride, Tim McBride. It's not about this congressperson from Delaware.
That's right.
And it's not about Nancy Mason, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is about setting a standard. This is about setting a standard across the board and representing. They are representatives.
Yes.
And they are representing something to all women and all men.
This is a message that will be conveyed to school boards, just like Tiffany Polifko did. This will be conveyed to state legislators. It will be conveyed to businesses.
Which brings us to the brouhaha over Speaker Mike Johnson's comments yesterday when confronted with the issue. And we're going to play that for you and hear your judgment on it in just a moment. It's 5:44.
On the next Vince Coglianese show, the stories ripped from the headlines and translated into the truth. Join us 3 to 6 on WMAL.
The continued brouhaha over Nancy Mace daring to say that facilities on Capitol Hill designated for women should be exclusively for women now that there is a man who presents as a woman as a congressperson from Delaware. Democrat, of course. And yes, Nancy Mace reposted this video that was sent to her. I'm going to try to keep it as clean as possible.
This video goes out to Congresswoman Nancy Mace.
Ugh.
Congresswoman Nancy Mace, I hope that one day I do find you in that women's bathroom and I grab your
Okay, now I got to stop it there, and then we'll continue on from here.
Down to the floor while I repeatedly bash it in until the blood's everywhere and you're dead.
Yeah, that is. You're right. The appearance is sort of like the serial killer in Silence of the Lambs. That's the threatening video that Nancy Mace received there.
I mean, and again, like, Hakeem Jeffries and the trans movement and AOC and all these people can pretend that every trans woman is like Sarah McBride, passable, gentle, and not a threat. But there are an awful lot. Look, the trans movement is filled with these types of people, and I don't care. Go ahead and
there are bad
me on
men
Twitter.
everywhere. Some of them dress up like women. Some of them dress up like men. But they're not allowed in women's spaces. Period.
That's right.
They shouldn't be. And you're right. And listen, we've come a long way from love is love and just let people marry who. This is the problem with where this movement has gone. All right, Mike Johnson asked about this, but not really asked about this. You see, listen to the question posed by the reporter at the beginning.
Mr. Speaker, is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman?
All right, so the question was, is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman? All right, so now this is, and Mike Johnson, obviously not a dumb man, recognizes that this is, first of all, ultimately about the bathroom issue, but the way the question is posed,
it's bait.
It is bait. It is absolute bait. And so Johnson, his political skills kick in and decide that he's going to try to reject the premise, right?
Look, I'm not going to get into this. We welcome all new members with open arms who are duly elected representatives of the people. I believe it's a command that we treat all persons with dignity and respect, and we will. And I'm not going to engage in silly debates about this. There's a concern about the uses of restroom facilities and locker rooms and all that. This is an issue that Congress has never had to address before, and we're going to do that in deliberate fashion.
All right. Now, it was interpreted that he said that what Nancy Mace was proposing was a silly debate. I think he was saying that the question that the reporter asked, I'm not going to engage in it. That said, Julie, he should have been a little bit more clear. Exactly.
It was a really good look. I have a lot of sympathy for his situation here, and I have sympathy for anyone who gets in front of a number of cameras and maybe didn't expect the question. In some ways, this whole thing is silly, Larry, and maybe Johnson meant the idea that I'm being asked this absolutely absurd, anti-scientific question about a biological man who wants to waltz into a women's bathroom. So I will give Johnson the benefit of the doubt because, honestly, we live in crazy times.
You're right.
We live in Clown Town.
My instinct, I like Johnson. I think he's a good man. I want to give him benefit of the doubt, too. But at the same time, I think I think that this is a time for clarity.
Well, yes. If I could back up time and whisper in Johnson's ear, this would have been a great time to, as Tiffany Polifko and Nancy Mace are trying to do right now, is stand up for women nationwide and say, yes, this is a biological male. We have labels on bathrooms for a reason. Stay out of the women's bathroom.
Within an hour, somebody did whisper in Mike Johnson's ear and said, just so you know, Speaker Johnson, what you said there came across as not necessarily supporting the notion that these facilities should be for men and women only. And so he called the press together so he could make sure that his opinion is known.
Hello, everybody. I just want to make a statement for all of you here and be very clear. I was asked a question this morning at the leadership gaggle, and I rejected the premise because the answer is so obvious. For anybody who doesn't know my well-established record on this issue, let me be unequivocally clear. A man is a man, and a woman is a woman, and a man cannot become a woman. That said, I also believe, that's what Scripture teaches, what I just said, but I also believe that we treat everybody with dignity.
And, I think that's the appropriate Christian response. Everybody gets dignity, but that also means Nancy Mace deserves the dignity of having private. Every girl. And again, we keep saying Nancy Mace. Your 6-year-old daughter deserves the dignity of privacy without being, intimidated and terrified.
Super quick. What he just conveyed and what you just repeated, Larry, is a project that the Independent Women's Forum and Independent Women's Voice are working on right now. It's called I Am Both. And we do want to treat people with dignity and kindness, but we also want to preserve these women's spaces. Don't think you have to be one or the other. You can be both.
Yeah.
You can care about trans people and you can care about women.
Is there anything, you talk about treat people with dignity and respect and compassion. Is there anything that is more damaging to a woman's dignity than to force them to be confronted with a fully intact, naked man against their consent? You're right. Everyone deserves the respect and dignity and compassion. Let's start with the women in the room first.
How about that?
And if Tim Sarah McBride had any ounce of dignity and any ounce of respect for women, Tim Sarah McBride would be leading the charge here.
Yep.
But Sarah McBride's making it all about trans rights and trying to use this as a political cudgel and weapon. And that, I think, tells you everything you need to know. It's 5:55.